1 month tomorrow since Labor was elected to government nationally. There's plenty to be worried about, from rising inflation and interest rates to a plummeting share market and fears of a global recession. Then there's the energy crisis, sending prices sky high and threatening our electricity supplies. But all those issues were in train. None of them can be blamed on Labor, except to the extent that Labor agreed with all the wild spending and the renewables push. Labor's going to be judged on how they handle these issues, and let's hope for the best. But the one national dilemma that has happened since the election, actually starting on election day, that's linked to the change of government, is border protection and the worrying signs there. The people smugglers are active again, with at least 4 boats now being intercepted since election day, trying to bring asylum seekers from Sri Lanka to Australia. Thankfully, they've all been turned back so far, and the government is saying and doing the right thing.
Very clearly, our system is in place of Operation Sovereign Borders. People smugglers seek to trade in misery. They seek to mislead, often run by criminal syndicates, and that is why it is so misleading to behave in that way. We will be strong on borders without being weak on humanity, but we will be strong when it comes to our borders.
Yeah, the old tough but humane line. We've heard that before, haven't we? It's usually the attempts to display humanity that weaken the border protection regime and lead, of course, to the most inhumane outcomes. The Prime Minister has now sent his Home Affairs Minister, Claire O'Neill, to visit Sri Lanka to try and help cut off this trade at its source. There's no doubt that post-pandemic economic trauma in Sri Lanka is helping to fuel the desperation of people there to leave. And no doubt the government, our government that is, will try to provide more humanitarian aid to Sri Lanka to reduce the push factor, if you like. But as we know, there are always push factors to come to Australia. The worry is that Labor might already have added a pull factor. Take the case of one woman returned to Sri Lanka by Operation Sovereign Borders this month with her husband and her 2 sons. Minu Makala told The Australian that we were told there is a new refugee-friendly government elected and we would not be sent back. She went on to say, "It was such a hard journey we make. I would not have taken it had I known that we would be sent back like this." So look, we all know that this is a difficult area, and let's give Labor credit so far. The boats have been turned back. But Operation Sovereign Borders is just doing what they've always done in terms of intercepting boats. And as long as they find all the boats, as long as they intercept all of them, that'll be fine. But this is where Labor's plan to scrap temporary protection visas could prove disastrous. Think first about the Biloela family. Their return to the Queensland town last week is undoubtedly humane and good for them. But this is a family whose mother and father each came on separate asylum seeker boats from Sri Lanka. So it's clear that this decision could undermine the strong border protection message. So given all this, and with at least 4 boats now being intercepted over the past 4 weeks, surely Labor can't go ahead and scrap temporary protection visas. Because if they do scrap TPVs, it'll create a perverse incentive for boats to get around our vessels, to sneak through Operation Sovereign Borders and make dangerous attempts to land on our shores. This is a real test for Labor, and in the early days they're doing the right thing. But the new efforts by the people smugglers, the new push to send asylum seekers, should convince Labor not to change a thing, not to scrap TPVs, because that will send the wrong signal. That will send a signal that our borders are not as tough as they used to be.